Week 5 of Big Brother 26 has come and gone, and with the house having to deal with the aftermath of the Cedric blindside and the implosion of the collective/Pentagon power structure, the dynamics of the house have definitely shifted. But how did it all break down? Well, that's why I'm here. In this video, I'm going to be recapping the events of Week 5 of Big Brother 26 and giving my updated power rankings. So with all of that preamble out of the way, it is the one and only RJ21 here, and let's get into the Big Brother 26 Week 5 recap and power rankings. Week 5 starts off with the Firewall HOH competition, this season's rendition of the wall competition. If you're even a casual fan of Big Brother, you know what the wall comp is. But for those of you who don't know, basically, the HouseGuests have to hold onto this tilting wall, and the HouseGuest who stays on the wall the longest will become the new head of household. Ultimately, this competition comes down to Tucker and Quinn, the ultimate showdown that literally everybody was asking for and wanted to see. But in the end, Tucker came out on top, becoming the new head of household in a series record for the shortest wall comp in the history of Big Brother. With Tucker now in a direct position of power, he decides to make the most of this opportunity by strengthening the alliance he had established in the prior week with the tanks, consisting of himself, Rubina, T-Core, Kimo, and Angela, and expands it to become the 6th Avenue, consisting all 5 of them plus Joseph, becoming the new majority alliance within the house. It's pretty clear at this point that Quinn is going to be Tucker's target, but with Tucker being the agent of chaos that he is, that's obviously not what he's going to do. So he ends up having a conversation with Quinn where he's hashing things out, saying that he is going to be nominating Quinn because that is the obvious thing to do, but Quinn is only a pawn and the real target is going to be Brooklyn, because he perceives Brooklyn as the one who is leading the other side of the house, especially after Brooklyn being on the wrong side of the Cedric vote. With Tucker knowing exactly who was on the other side of the Cedric blind side, he wanted to get some more information out of them to see if he truly was making the correct decision in choosing to target Brooklyn instead of Quinn. So he decides to have conversations with all 3 of them. He first talks to Brooklyn and gets nothing out of Brooklyn. He then talks to Chelsie and gets nothing out of Chelsie, and he finally talks to Cam and once again gets nothing out of Cam. All of this non-information being given to Tucker essentially confirms to him that they are in fact working together and that they are the people that he should be targeting. So at the nomination ceremony, Tucker chooses to nominate Quinn, Cam, and Brooklyn, with Brooklyn being the primary target. After the nomination ceremony, Tucker pulls Quinn aside and says that despite everything he said at the nomination ceremony, Brooklyn was in fact the primary target and not Quinn. Now, Quinn doesn't buy this in the slightest, but this is what Tucker is telling Quinn. We then cut to a conversation between Kimo and Tucker, where Kimo is leaking even more information to Tucker about the previous house dynamics and how everything had been set previously. Last week, he told Tucker about the collective alliance, the bigger 8-person alliance, but this time, he's choosing to tell Tucker about the Pentagon, the smaller 5-person alliance within that onion, and this was the information that Tucker needed to confirm that his target this week should be Brooklyn and not Quinn. We then cut to another conversation between Quinn and Brooklyn, where the both of them are essentially trauma bonding over the fact that they are nominated on the block next to each other. This is where Quinn makes, in my opinion, a very idiotic decision in telling Brooklyn what Tucker had told him, in saying that Quinn was the pawn and Brooklyn was the target. But Brooklyn says that Tucker told her that she was the pawn and Quinn was the target. So they're both getting mixed signals about what Tucker's true intentions are. So Brooklyn goes up to Tucker and essentially rats Quinn out, saying that Quinn had leaked Tucker's plans and how Quinn had said that he was the pawn and Brooklyn was the target, absolutely destroying everything that Tucker had been trying to set up, because Tucker's initial plan was to use the power veto on Quinn to ensure that somebody within that tighter-knit group of the Pentagon would go home. But now that Tucker knows that Quinn is leaking this information, it's probably really shaking up Tucker's plans about whether or not he should actually go through with this. We then pick players for the power veto competition to where the HOH and Tucker, the 3 nominees in Brooklyn, Cam, and Quinn, and Makensy and Joseph are all selected to compete in this week's power veto competition. This week's power veto competition is an absolute classic, and it's hide and go veto, a veto competition we haven't seen since Big Brother 21, and I am so glad that we got to see it back this time because I absolutely love this competition. In this competition, HouseGuests are given 2.5 minutes to hide a veto card anywhere in the house. Then, after everybody hides their veto cards, HouseGuests then have 2 minutes to search through the entire house trying to find veto cards. Once 5 veto cards are found, it is revealed whose veto cards are found. And if your veto card is not found, then you will win the golden power of veto. Now, This competition created a lot of drama because it seems like everybody had inadvertently made this agreement to not touch each other's clothes. However, Brooklyn was petty as hell, and she was going through destroying everybody's clothes and throwing it all on the ground for everywhere, and it definitely created a lot of drama. But ultimately, the competition comes down to Joseph, of all people, and Tucker, with Tucker coming out and winning his 3rd power veto in a row and his 6th competition overall. Everybody then re-enters the house after the hide and go veto competition, and to say Tucker was pissed about what happened would be an absolute understatement, because Tucker was deeply offended by the fact that somebody not only touched his clothes but threw them on the ground and made an absolute mess. And Tucker immediately pins Quinn as the one who did this, despite it actually being Brooklyn, and this creates a lot of drama and a lot of tension between the two of them. Eventually, Tucker and Quinn have a conversation where they hash everything out, where Quinn apologizes for telling Brooklyn about the plan and ruining what Tucker had set up prior in the week. And even though this doesn't build a lot of trust for the long term, it does buy Quinn a lot of good favor with Tucker, at least in the present moment. And it shows that Quinn is willing to own up to his mistakes, and in Tucker's eyes, that's good enough. So, at the power veto ceremony, Tucker, before he even chooses to use the power veto, decides to blow up the house once again by exposing literally everything that had been going on in the prior week, calling out everybody that was in the collective, then calling everybody out who was in the Pentagon, and then calls out Chelsie and Brooklyn as the heads of the Pentagon and how they have been essentially running the house. And after all of that, Tucker shocks the house by using the power veto to save Quinn, of all people, and then nominates Chelsie in his place. After the veto ceremony, it's a pretty done deal about what should happen this week. Brooklyn is the clear target, and if she doesn't win the AI arena, she's most likely going home. However, there's one scenario everyone has to consider. What if Brooklyn wins the AI arena and it's Cam and Chelsie on the block? Tucker would want Chelsie to go home because Tucker perceives Chelsie as the second in command to Brooklyn and how they are essentially running that side of the house. However, people don't want to go alongside that, particularly Rubina, T-Core, and Kimo, as they perceive Cam as a bigger threat who is more closely aligned to Tucker that Tucker is protecting, rather than Chelsie, somebody who all 3 of them have a very strong game and personal relationship with. So, if Brooklyn were to win the AI arena and Cam and Chelsie were on the block, the 3 of them are strongly considering flipping the vote on Cam against Tucker's wishes and keeping Chelsie and sending Cam out. We then get to the BBAI arena, which is this data decryption competition where words are going to be scrambled and flying across the screen, and the house guests are going to have to unscramble them and then assemble whatever AI image is being said in those images, and whoever can guess all 3 of those images correctly and hit their buzzer first will win the AI arena and earn their safety. Now, maybe this is just me being an armchair quarterback, but for some reason, it seemed pretty easy in terms of what the house guests had to do. Like, it just seemed like they had to unscramble the words, but for some reason, Cam, Brooklyn, and Chelsie just were not getting it. It literally got to the point where the producers stopped scrambling the words and were literally just plastering the words on the screen, unscrambled, just waiting for them to unscramble them, and they still couldn't do it. Like, I don't know if that's just me like talking with my ego or something, but it seemed like a really easy comp and they just couldn't do it. But ultimately, Chelsie wins the AI arena, earning her safety, leaving Brooklyn and Cam on the block. Now, Brooklyn tries campaigning hard in the last second because she knows she is the primary target, and she is advocating to everybody that if she were to stay in the house, her primary target would be Tucker. But it seems like it's all for naught, as come the live vote, by a vote of 8-1, Brooklyn is the 5th house guest to be evicted from the Big Brother 26 house, with only Chelsie voting to keep her.
I don't get mad, I just get even. So I hope luck is on your favor the entire rest of the season, because you're gonna need it.
Now it's time to get into the power rankings. At number 12, the most recently evicted house guest, we have Brooklyn, and wow, she crashed and burned this week. Like, I understand it must be really hurtful to be on the wrong side of the vote, and she definitely was feeling a lot of whirlwind of emotions, but the way she acted just put such a big bullseye on her target that it literally flipped like the entire house on her. Like, I remember when the flip first happened and I was reading tweets about how literally Tucker, Rubina, T-Core, Kimo, Leah, Angela, and Makensy were all turned against Brooklyn because of how she was acting. Like, just seeing the names kept getting added and added and added after everything. It was so bad for Brooklyn, and it just proves that Brooklyn is the type of player who can dominate when she's in a top position, but she cannot scramble when she's at the bottom. Like, she kind of reminds me of like an Amira from Big Brother 24, to where when she was in a power position controlling the game, she was doing a very good job. But when she was on the bottom and she was getting clocked for her game, she just couldn't advocate for herself, and she couldn't accurately defend herself in a way that made people actively want to keep her. She did try her best in trying to get people to vote to keep her, but it was ultimately all for naught. All of the people that she needed to vote for her to stay, she had burned throughout the entire week. Rubina, T-Core, Kimo, critical votes that she needed, she had burned prior in the week. It was all just really bad gameplay. Now, that's not to say that I think Brooklyn is a particularly bad player. I think she's more like below average, because I can't ignore all of the great work she was doing in the earlier weeks. I think she just got cocky. I think she got super cocky. I think she got super comfortable in her position, and she's just unwilling to adapt. She was unwilling to accept the fact that she was no longer in this power position, and instead she resorted to passive aggressively attacking all of the people who were on the other side, calling them scared and sucking up to Tucker, which I guess to a certain extent it kind of makes sense, but still, that's like the number one way you don't preserve your allies in this game. And I think that's ultimately what got Brooklyn done in this game, leaving her here at number 12.
I'm frustrated, and I'm about to get my frustration out on these closets. Oh, Tucker, you like your clothes all nice and neat? Too bad. Sorry, not sorry. Oh, T-Core, your crocheted stuff? Yeah, it's gone. I'm not sorry. Sue me.
Now it's time to talk about the players that are actually still in the game. At number 11, the HouseGuest I believe to be in the worst position in the house right now is Cam. And when I was reevaluating this power ranking after the eviction, I didn't think I was going to keep Cam at the bottom. I was keeping Cam at the bottom for a majority of this week because he's been so passive. But even after the eviction, I still believe Cam is in the worst position in the house. He is a coaster. I thought he was more of a collaborator in the sense that he was sticking with his alliance. But even after his entire alliance implodes around him, he still chooses to do absolutely nothing. Even though it was propped up as, oh, he's trying to work with Tucker now, he wasn't even really doing that. He was more so just conversating with him because he's a dude and he's one of the bros and stuff like that. Like, Cam did literally nothing strategic this week. All he did was lay back and just smile like his cat's photo. Like, if you've seen the memes of Cam just being unbothered by literally everything going on in the game right now, that's literally what Cam is doing. He is doing absolutely nothing. And because of that, he's now left in a position where he has no allies. He has nobody who actively wants to work with him or keep him long term. I mean, I guess he has people like Chelsie or Quinn who kind of want to keep him around, but at that point, both of them have better options to work with Cam. So at this point, Cam is essentially just a meat shield waiting to get taken out. Like, Cam is this competitor who everyone thought was going to be a competitor, but he's not a competitor. He can't win anything. He can't win any of these carnival games, which is kind of funny to me considering how much he props himself up as this athlete and somebody who's here to compete and win comps, but he can't win anything. And even though that should diminish his threat level, it's honestly put him as such a weak player that nobody's even really considering him as somebody who should be actively valued as a player in this game. So right now, he's a coaster, he has nobody, and I definitely see him going home pretty soon if he doesn't do something. Literally anything. Just find someone to work with, please, Cam. But because he hasn't done any of that, I have to keep him here at number 11.
This takes me back to old football drill days trying to get my grip strength up. This is all forearm grip and grit. I'm on my ballerina vibes right now, on my pirouette weight.
At number 10, I have Makensy. And watching Makensy play this week was genuinely, like, painful. Like, she is so painfully unaware of everything going on in the house right now. It's genuinely insane she's made it this far in the game. Like, she's clueless. She doesn't know anything that's going on right now. She just now figured out this week that Tucker and Rubina are close. Like, what? Are you serious? Like, we're this far in the game and you're just now figuring out that people have these ride or dies that are literally so obvious. Like, literally everybody's clocking them as this showmance. But you're not seeing that? Like, it's absolutely insane to me how bad her reads on the house are. It's crazy. Like, she's so bad. And what's crazy is that she was actively being pulled into the Cedric vote plan. Like, she was an absolutely critical vote that was needed in order for that plan to go through. And she did in fact go through with it. But even after that, she's still not being pulled into any of these alliances. She's still not being seen as this valuable number that people could actively keep around for the long term. Makensy should be this critical number that people can pick up, but nobody sees any value in keeping her because of how poorly she's playing this game. She absolutely demonstrated that this week she was Brooklyn's puppet. She was literally just mouthing off whatever Brooklyn told her and was essentially this speaking piece that was advocating for Brooklyn to stay. Like, Makensy was probably the only person besides Brooklyn that was advocating for Brooklyn to stay. And that really weakened Makensy. It really made her look like a weak player. It looked like somebody who couldn't really think on her own. And at this point in the game, she is basically worthless. I hate saying that because it sounds like I'm making like a personal attack against her. But in regards to her position in the game, it's so bad. She has nobody in a position where she should have at least a couple people. Like, the fact that she was brought into that vote flip should give her some, at least somewhat guaranteed numbers, but that's not even giving her anything. And because of how poorly she's playing all of this, I have to put her here at number 10.
This house cannot get rid of me, and these viruses and coolant gel are not about to get me either.
At number 9, I have Angela. And I was honestly blindsided by this. Like, Angela not being at the bottom of one of these power rankings, like, this is absolutely insane to me. But honestly, Angela played this week about as well as she could. Angela really took a backseat role this week. I mean, she was a have-not. She didn't win any competition. She wasn't in a direct position of power. She wasn't in the limelight because she knew she was protected by Tucker. So she didn't really need to do anything this week. And I honestly think that that played into her favor. She didn't necessarily do a lot of good work in terms of rebuilding some social bonds with people. I mean, she is starting to get along with the likes of Quinn and Makensy again, which is definitely doing her favors, at least in the short term. I don't think Angela has fully healed all of those relationships to put her in a very, very good position, because I do think she is still expendable, but she did a lot of good work this week. Even though it wasn't like necessarily super active, she did do a lot of good work. She was included in the tanks, and that got expanded to the 6th Avenue, and that, as of right now, is the current majority alliance. And so, even though she is most likely on the bottom of that alliance, even though Joseph is literally the 6th person in that alliance, I still believe Angela is on the bottom of that. And I think out of all of Tucker's allies, I think Angela is the most likely to be collateral damage. Like, if Tucker were to get nominated, or if Tucker were to win a competition and a backdoor plan were to go awry, I think Angela is going to be that person who gets taken out of the game in a position where it should have been Tucker. And I think that's a really bad position for Angela to be in, but she does have allies. I think this is one of the first times I can say that in this game, but Angela truly does have allies and people who do want to see her not only go far in the game, but people who actively want to work with her in the game. And I think this is going to be really good for her, but everything she has right now is on super shaky grounds. Nothing has a really solid foundation, and it's because of that I have to put Angela here at number 9.
Oh, it just pisses me off.
At number 8, I have Quinn. And I think Quinn is a really bad game player at this point in the game. Despite all of the good work that Quinn had done in the very, very early stages of this game, everything he has built up until this point is absolutely deteriorating, and it's putting him in an absolutely horrible position. Now, the reason why he isn't at the complete bottom is because he still has people who do want to work with him to a certain extent. Like, Quinn is a target, but people do want to work with him. Quinn still has the remnants of the Pentagon Alliance, which I guess is technically the Triangle now, considering that 2 of the 5 of them have now gone. So I guess technically the Triangle still wants to keep Quinn around, and Quinn still does have the Visionaries with T-Core and Kimo, which should be good, but everybody is keeping him an arm's length away. Everybody is keeping their distance from Quinn because Quinn has openly been playing this very schemy, very deceitful, very conniving game, and people just don't vibe with that. And I think that's putting Quinn in a really, really bad position. I think he is definitely playing it up for the camera, and it definitely is coming off as a bit disingenuous, but I think that disingenuousness is bleeding into the Big Brother house, and it's hurting people's perceptions of Quinn. Now, I think he got super lucky this week in the fact that his target is so big that he's now no longer seen as a threat. I think Quinn at this point is essentially a meat shield for people to use, but that doesn't deny the fact that Quinn is in a really bad position. He has some good allies who do want to keep him around, but he is a pretty big target that people do want to take out if the opportunity presents itself. But because he does have some allies who do want to keep him around, and I think he would be able to recover his position, I have him here at number 8.
I only manifested winning, I only thought about victory, and I hadn't considered what it'd feel like to lose. You know, sucks.
Beat yourself up.
At number 7, I have Chelsie. And it feels weird having Chelsie this low, but Cedric going last week was an absolute devastating blow to her game. But she's at this point because out of everybody on the wrong side of the Cedric vote, she's recovered her position the best. I mean, she's the only one who didn't unnecessarily create animosity with the likes of a T-Core, of a Kimo, and in fact, she actually strengthened her bonds with those people, and it's what kept her safe this week. If Chelsie was sitting on the block next to Cam, the vote most likely would have flipped to keep Chelsie in the game. And that's because of all of the good work that Chelsie was putting into strengthening her bond with these people who she is accurately assessing as the people in power positions, the likes of a Rubina, a T-Core, and a Kimo. And the fact that she's able to accurately clock this proves that she is a pretty good game player. However, her getting pinned as one of the masterminds or one of the leaders of the collective / Pentagon side of the house is definitely a bad look for her. The fact that Chelsie literally gets called out by Tucker in front of the entire house is really, really bad. And it definitely puts a much bigger bullseye on Chelsie, to where even the likes of people like Leah are clocking Chelsie as this big threat who needs to be addressed sooner rather than later if she continues to skate by. And I think that's honestly really, really bad for her. I think Chelsie should be able to shake off this target, but if more and more people start catching on to how Chelsie is playing this game, I foresee her definitely going home in a position where I honestly don't expect her to go home. This week was definitely a very, very bad one for her, and I honestly didn't expect it to be. While she did do so much good work in mending relationships despite being on the wrong side of the vote, she is now becoming a much more apparent target that people want to get rid of. Hell, Tucker was putting Chelsie as the backup secondary target, and while Chelsie would not have gone home, that's a horrible position to be in. Now, looking at her future prospects, she definitely still has a lot of leg room. She still has the remnants of the Pentagon in the triangle with Cam and Quinn. She still has these really solid bonds with the people I've aforementioned, like Kimo and T-Core and Rubina. Like, these are all people who still want to work with her and want to keep her around, and I think that's going to do her some good as of right now, but her future prospects outside of that aren't looking too bright, and I think it's definitely going to take some time for Chelsie to ultimately rebuild that, which is why I have her here at number 7.
How did this game flip like this? What am I missing, and who do I need to slap?
At number 6, I surprisingly have Tucker. And despite Tucker playing an absolutely abysmal strategic game in these prior couple of weeks, Tucker has done a really good job this week in solidifying a very strong position. Outside of Chelsea's HOH, I think Tucker had one of the best HOHs of the season so far, which, to be fair, isn't really that much to be competing with, but still, Tucker had an absolutely great HOH week this week. He got out the target he wanted in Brooklyn. He now has this new, really solid power alliance around him in the likes of Angela, T-Core, Kimo, Rubina, and Joseph. He has these final twos with people he trusts in Rubina and Joseph and Angela, and now he's starting to make all of these side deals with the likes of Leah and Makensy and slowly branching out those relationships. And Tucker is honestly doing a really, really good job at controlling the chaos that he is creating. And I absolutely love that he's being able to do that. I think it's honestly kind of shocking how polarizing of a player Tucker is, where he can make some really, really questionable and downright bad moves, but then when he's given the opportunity to kind of rectify his mistakes, he does an absolutely great job. And I think if Tucker can keep this up, he's going to be in a really good position. Now, the only blind spot he has is the fact that his allies are perceiving him as a big threat. The likes of a T-Core and a Kimo are definitely looking at Tucker as this huge threat that, if the opportunity presents itself, is going to be backdoored. Now, I don't think Tucker is going to be backdoored until this AI arena comp twist ends, because Tucker has proven that he is the AI arena beast, and if you put him in that competition, he's going to win. So until that twist ends, Tucker essentially has implied immunity. So that's definitely not good for them. It's great for Tucker, but as soon as that twist ends, Tucker is screwed. Like, he is 100% going to get backdoored, and that is honestly going to be horrible for his game. The fact that he trusts these people so much, but now that they're seeing them as this big threat that needs to be taken out, it's really bad for Tucker. And if he doesn't recognize this sooner rather than later, he's going to be on the receiving end of an absolutely brutal backdoor. But he did a lot of great work this week. He has a really solid power structure around him, and I honestly see him going pretty far if he's able to keep up this good work, which is why I have him here at number 6.
I was really good at Easter egg hunts. Gotcha!
At number 5, I have Leah. And in the past, I had coined Leah as a coaster, somebody who's not doing anything. But this week has proven that she's not a coaster. She's a floater, and I think that's honestly a great position for her to be in. I had been criticizing her in the past and how she's been mismanaging a lot of her relationships, but it seems that this week she's done a lot of great work in mending those relationships. While she still has a really huge disconnect with the likes of somebody like a Cam, she's slowly rebuilding things with somebody like a Quinn. She's now branching out and really solidifying something strong with the likes of a Joseph, and is now actively being brought in as a third wheel to people like Tucker and Angela. And I think that's honestly the best position for Leah to be in at this point. I think she's doing a really great job at finding all of these allies and really solidifying them as potential allies for the long term. Right now, she still is in a bit of a floater position. Like, I would say she is alliance adjacent, to where the 6th Avenue is definitely the core power alliance as of right now, but Leah is definitely that 7th number that they are tagging along, that they do want to keep around for the long term, in terms of her just being solely a number and not an actual ally that they want to keep around. And that definitely does suck for her game. But I think Leah is eventually going to be in a position where she is not going to be somebody who is going to be looked down upon. Unlike somebody like a Makensy, who has made herself look absolutely useless, people see a lot of value in Leah as a number, and a lot of people are actively fighting for her vote. Now, some people are fighting in a very bad way, somebody like a Chelsie, and absolutely burning that relationship, but that's on Chelsea's end, and that's Chelsie doing bad work in that sense. But Leah, on the other hand, is doing the exact opposite. I think in prior weeks, Leah had been burning bridges, but now she's mending bridges and building all of these solid allies. And if Leah can continue doing all of this great work, I think Leah is going to be in this game for a long haul. I think she's honestly a dark horse pick to go really far at this point. I definitely think if she continues playing her cards right, playing this middle position, in a position where she's not at the top of the house and everybody knows she's a floater, or somebody who's playing the middle, but rather somebody who's just kind of wishy-washy, somebody who is just not really set on anything in that sense. But if Leah can continue doing that, I think she's going to have a really deep run in this game, which is why I have her here at number 5.
This is so hard. I am literally trembling. I'm trying so hard.
Leah, you have been eliminated.
At number 4, I have Joseph. And even though Joseph, I think on a strategic level, is doing a really good job, I think Joseph is once again overestimating how good he is playing this game. He wants to go to the end of this game with Tucker, in a position where he thinks he's going to beat Tucker, but realistically, if Tucker makes Final 2 and continues this absolute beast of a competition run that he's on right now, Tucker is going to sweep a jury, whether it's 7-0, 8-0, whatever this jury makeup's going to be. But Tucker is absolutely going to sweep a jury vote, especially if he's sitting next to Joseph, somebody who people are just absolutely like not even taking seriously at this point. So Joseph is making a really bad read in that sense. But despite that, Joseph did a lot of great work this week. The fact that he was brought into the 6th Avenue as another number is great for his game, because now he has once again another majority alliance that is protecting him, at least in the short term. Now, the reason I say the short term is because people are looking at Joseph as this really shady figure. Despite Joseph not actually being actively brought into the Cedric vote flip, Joseph is still getting a lot of the blame in a position where he most definitely should not be getting a lot of blame. People are looking at him as one of the core members of causing that vote flip to happen, when he literally changed his vote because 2 people were holding hands. Like, that's how much Joseph is out of the loop, yet in the loop. The fact that he is actively like finding all of these moves and actively putting himself in those positions, but the way in which he's doing it is building a lot of mistrust, and people are definitely going to target him sooner rather than later. I think he could be a mid-jury boot if he continues playing his cards incorrectly. But if he can rectify all of his mistakes and actually do good work like he has shown he is able to do, I think Joseph is going to continue being in a really good position. I think he needs to ride the 6th Avenue alliance just a little bit longer. I also think he definitely needs to sort of somewhat detach himself with Tucker to the point where he no longer views him as like his ride or die final two that he actively wants to go to the end with. But I think if Joseph can do all that stuff, he's going to be in a prime position to win this game, which is why I have him here at number 4.
I don't really care if I win this veto. Winning these competitions is for chumps.
A few moments later.
There's a possibility that I could actually win this competition without even trying that hard.
At number 3, I have Kimo, and surprisingly enough, I thought Kimo was going to be a lot more in the positive this week, considering that he had just made an absolutely massive move in taking Cedric out, and this put him in a prime power position alongside T-Core. But I think the way in which he handled that blindside honestly did him more harm than anything, because a lot of people are placing the blame on Kimo over T-Core. Last week, I was praising Kimo for being the quote-unquote figurehead of this duo between himself and T-Core. I was praising him in that sense because people were giving him a lot of credit. But now it's a detriment to his game because people are giving him credit. Like, people are accrediting him as the one who initiated the move, and because of that, he is now starting to be perceived as this bit of an untrustworthy figure. Somebody who is a potential target that could be thrown around, somebody who is probably going to become this end game threat that people are recognizing that they have to take out. And if Kimo doesn't rectify that by diminishing his threat level and really solidifying those personal bonds and those game relationships, I think Kimo could be in a lot of trouble. Now, I do think that is a slim chance, but as we've seen in prior weeks, even the smallest sliver of a chance could absolutely implode somebody's game. So I definitely think Kimo needs to be careful in that sense. However, this week, I think he did a lot of really good work. The fact that he is included in the 6th Avenue is an absolutely great thing for his game. The fact that he's now cultivating these really strong bonds with the likes of a Tucker, somebody who is most likely going to be comping out for at least the near future, is definitely great for his game. And the fact that he does have a lot of influence and a lot of pull in what people want and people wanting to work with him, I think that's honestly great for him. If Kimo can keep up all of this good work, I think he's going to be in a prime position. The only thing is that he is going to have to manage his threat level, but I honestly don't think that's going to be an issue for him, considering how well he was able to recover from week 1. So with all of that in mind, I have to put Kimo here at number 3.
I want Tucker to know about this mini alliance within the collective alliance because I want to be as transparent as possible.
At number 2, I have Rubina, and this week is exactly what Rubina needed. Momentum. After being saved from the vote flip last week and Tucker winning HOH this week, this put Rubina in a prime position where she not only didn't have to worry about possibly being nominated because her closest ally won, she's now in a position where she can actively influence the direction that the HOH goes in, and she has the opportunity to branch off and build all of these connections she just honestly didn't have the opportunity to build in prior weeks. The fact that she was able to solidify this really strong bond with the likes of a Chelsie, despite Chelsie actively voting her out last week. Like, the fact that Rubina was able to mend that relationship and actively want to work with Chelsie at this point in the game is honestly great for her. And I'm honestly thoroughly impressed by the fact that Rubina was able to do this. I think Rubina being second in command to Tucker at this point in the game is honestly doing her great work. Now, the biggest worry I have for her is that she is second in command to Tucker. I know I cited Angela as the one most likely being the collateral damage, but if things were to go really, really wrong, where Tucker wins veto and Angela wins the AI arena, or some other crazy amalgamation of scenarios, I think Rubina is going to be in a lot of trouble. I think Rubina definitely needs to detach herself from Tucker at least a little bit, and that's probably going to be really difficult considering that they are like an actual showmance now. and that like they are actually doing showman stuff. So it's honestly going to be impossible to detach yourselves from one another in that sense. So that's definitely going to be difficult for Rubina to do. But I think Rubina can honestly play her position very well as long as she recognizes that she needs to build stronger bonds with people on the other side, and she needs to actively be included in more game talks and game strategies. I think if Rubina is able to do this, I think she's going to be in a great position, which is why I have her here at number 2.
Karma is a bitch. Karma is a bitch tonight. I'm not gonna hide how happy I am. That means I'm safe. Let's go!
At number 1, the HouseGuest I believe to be in the best position in the house as of week 5 is T-Core. And T-Core played, I think, absolutely amazing this week. Despite T-Core definitely having some flaws in the sense that she was pinned as one of the people who initiated the Cedric flip, and she was getting a lot of heat in that sense, I think she was able to recover from that really well. Despite people like Brooklyn and Chelsie initially really going after T-Core and Kimo, a lot of that blame shifted from T-Core to primarily Kimo, and that enabled her to essentially skate by through that Cedric flip unscathed. And I think that did her so much great work. She's now actively in the 6th Avenue Alliance with Tucker, who's this power player at this point. She has the Visionaries with Quinn, who could be a power player if he were to win a competition. She has great bonds with the likes of a Chelsie, who is on the other side of the house, who definitely is going to be a pivotal number for her to pick up. Like, T-Core has all of these seeds that could blossom into something great as long as she maintains these seeds. As long as she keeps cultivating them and takes care of them, I think she's going to be in a prime position to run this game. As long as T-Core doesn't do anything unnecessary and doesn't do anything that massively blows up her game, I think if she can just maintain what she's doing right now, not ruffle any feathers, and just maintain this middle position, I think she is going to be primed, and I mean primed, to win this game. Not just go far. I think if she can continue all of the work she's doing right now, I genuinely think T-Core could run this game and end up with a victory. And it's all of this great work that I have in mind that I have to put T-Core here at number 1.
It is what it is. It's already done. And I've decided to move through this game unafraid.
Overall, despite Tucker being the HOH and it seeming like this week was going to be an absolutely chaotic week, this week was pretty tame, all things considered. Tucker had a target in Brooklyn. Brooklyn went home. The only really quote-unquote exciting thing that happened this week was Tucker using the veto on Quinn, and that didn't even necessarily change the outcome of the week in Brooklyn being evicted. So I guess it really wasn't major in that sense. It is definitely very interesting seeing the power dynamics of the house essentially flip to where we saw the Pentagon running this game for the first 3 weeks, but now it's the 6th Avenue that's in the power position. And I'm honestly rooting for the 6th Avenue much more than I was ever rooting for the Pentagon at this point. Like, I'm honestly loving the 6th Avenue. I hope they can stay strong. I hope that they can maintain this position because I just love this alliance so much, and I just love the gameplay that they're bringing along with the entertainment in the likes of a Tucker. Like, if this season continues going down the path that it's going down, this is genuinely going to be a top tier season, and I am all for it. But those are just my thoughts. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you have any of those, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.